Hello there! I'm Frederik Corneli from KU Leuven and the Fantails project. In this short video, I want to walk you through some of the materials for language teaching and learning produced by the Fantails team, at the hand of 2 lesson ideas that you can use in your classes. Let's first taste what Fantails is about by looking at some footage from one of our classrooms. Before we dive into the materials, first a word about why we started this project. First of all, we believe in the power of stories for language learning. When we read, binge watch, or tell stories in another language, language learning comes naturally. Secondly, the use of stories in the language classroom can be much more than teaching literature. Drawing on popular stories in media can be a way to connect to the interests of learners and engage them in communicative tasks. Third, many of our classrooms are super diverse. So, we wanted a differentiated approach to teaching with stories, where each learner can bring their interests, abilities, and language background to the tasks at hand. And finally, we wanted our approach to be playful, so our students can have some fun while learning. We found the answer to our challenges in storytelling practices outside the classroom. First and foremost, we found inspiration in the wonderful world of fan fiction. We defined fan fiction quite simply as a type of creative writing that transforms or extends an existing story in some way, done by a person who is deeply invested in the fictional world of that story. In this picture, for example, you see a fan of the Harry Potter stories has engaged in a type of fan fiction writing called fix-a-fic. Fix-a-fic is written to fix something in an original story that the fan does not like or disagrees with. These days, fan fiction is often created online. On sites like Archive of Our Own, fan fiction writers publish their work for other fans. These sites allow them to connect to an audience of like-minded readers, but also to learn collaboratively by actively seeking constructive criticism or concrete from other fans. Another reason why fanfiction sites like Archive of Our Own are interesting spaces for language learning is that they are multilingual and multicultural. They are places where languages and cultures often mingle. Here you see the current collection of fanfiction in French written about the very English Harry Potter. And also the fanfiction texts themselves that you find on these sites can be multilingual. In this fanfic about Harry Potter, written mostly in English, French is used cleverly to make Harry Potter feel left out of a conversation between 2 girls that are falling in love. The use of multiple languages in a story can be meaningful for the development of the plot or the characters, but it can also be a way to value linguistic diversity and to enable language learning. Finally, fanfiction texts can be interactive. Here you see the famous banquet scene in the first book of Harry Potter in an interactive format, where the reader can decide what dessert Harry takes. This is an example of interactive fiction, a type of story where you take on the role of a fictional character and, perhaps more than in non-interactive types of fiction, you can play with identity. To summarize, Fantails is inspired by 4 practices found in informal storytelling contexts: fanfiction, multilingualism, interactive fiction, and collaborative learning. Fantails builds on these practices to develop materials for learning languages and culture in formal educational contexts through interactive digital storytelling. A partnership of teacher trainers, researchers and teachers from universities and secondary schools developed these materials, with financial support from the European Erasmus Plus program. We evaluated the materials for teaching and learning in upper secondary education to make sure they were effective. If you'd like to learn more about our research, head over to our website. In the rest of this video, I want to share with you some lesson ideas and materials that you can use to do Fantails in your classroom. Whatever the context you are teaching in, you can do Fantails. You can do Fantails in one lesson or devote a project to it that lasts throughout the school year. You can limit yourself to the target language of your class, or students can include additional languages in their work, such as their mother tongues or a local dialect. As far as technology is concerned, you can do Fantails completely unplugged, or you can go all the way with digital skills. For example, if you have your students write interactive fiction online with screen sharing technology. And finally, you can choose the extent to which students collaborate in the tasks. They can work largely on their own, or you can have them carry out group work between classes in schools in different countries. In this first lesson idea, which is perfect as a single lesson introduction to Fantails or as a warm-up activity for a larger project, students are going to write flash fiction, a short story produced by fans under a set amount of time, written in response to prompts. Students work in small groups and start by talking about the stories they are fans of. These can be books, films, TV series, games, or any other kind of media that involves a narrative. The teacher then gives each group blank Fantails prompt cards. These come in 4 types: phrase, location, character, and object. On these prompt cards, as you can see here, students write elements from their favorite stories, such as the character Rachel from the popular TV series Friends, or other elements they can think of, such as a phrase from pop culture. You can give students hints on how to write prompts so they fit into a coherent story, but the idea is not to limit their imagination too much. So the end result of the task includes a unique contribution from each student, and students develop confidence in being creative with the target language or languages. In a variation on this task, the teacher can also add some prompts to the mix for teaching specific vocabulary, such as the word souvenir mug in this example. Then, the teacher provides the students with a text selected for this class. Depending on the time you have and the level of your students, this can be an extract from the text in a gap-fill format or a summary. The text can be taken from the literary canon, so to speak, but it could also be the result of a writing task of another class of students. In this example, we're working with a gap-fill text in the Sherlock Holmes universe. You see the gaps in the text correspond to the different prompt types that were on the cards. In the final phase of this task, the prompt cards of the students are combined with the text, so you end up with fusion, another genre of fanfiction. There are different ways you can go about this. Students can build the story by making a clever selection from the prompts their group came up with. Or you can have chance decide how the story takes form, by having students draw cards from stacks for each prompt type, or by rolling dice. This speeds up the activity and can make up for hilariously funny and even nonsensical combinations, which can then serve as a basis for discussing how to improve the story. You can find the assets for this low-tech activity in our Fantails kit, available for download on our website. In this second lesson idea, students will complete an interactive robbery story by writing their fandoms and themselves into the story. For this activity, you will need at least 2 periods of 45 minutes and one computer or laptop device for each pair of group of 3 students, with internet access. The main ingredients for the story that students will produce in this task are self-insert fic, a type of fan fiction where the writer inserts themselves into the story, some humor, a pun or a magical word in a language other than the main language of the story, and a directional choice, a type of choice that you can make in interactive fiction games that involve navigation through time or space. Before students start writing, they will need to know how to work with Twine, a tool for making interactive fiction online. With the Fantails Twine tutorial, students can learn the basics of Twine and interactive fiction at the hand of popular stories in just 1 hour. For this writing task, students will work on the Fantails storytelling platform. As a teacher, you will find ready-made writing tasks that you can adapt for your context and assign to your students. The task that we're going to use in this lesson is "It's not easy to be a bank robber." In our experience, beginning writers of interactive fiction work best when they can rely on a model or structure of a story. Therefore, our storytelling platform enables you to add a story template to the task instructions, which students can then build on. Templates keep students on track and focused on writing a coherent text, instead of having to conceive good choices or having to deal with the technicalities of Twine. We will now assign this task to our class. You can see that this teacher is quite lucky to have only 4 students. When putting the groups together, it's a good idea to pair students who are each other's complement. For example, a student that is comfortable with writing creatively but is less confident about technology, with a student who takes coding lessons outside of school but is less fluent in writing. But for now, we're just going to group the students at random. When students log onto the platform, they see their list of storytelling projects. In this task, students will write an interactive fiction story on a bank robbery that takes place in Sweden. It involves 3 robbers, 2 characters from the students' fandoms. The other robber will be one of the students themselves. You remember that they are writing self-insert fan fiction. The robbery is successful or goes wrong, depending on the choices that the reader makes. The introduction scene takes place in a vault, where the robbers need to choose between box 1 or 2. This choice leads to 3 possible escape plans from the vault, requiring the reader to make directional choices about how to navigate through the vault. And then, of course, one of the escape plans will involve the use of a magical word in Swedish, which involves the use of another language than the main language of the story. The students write a scene for each of these plans and submit their work to the teacher. The teacher can then read and evaluate the student's work using a set of rubrics that were included in the task. On the platform, you will also find reusable rubric items for assessing the quality of fan fiction, interactive fiction, and multilingual storytelling. On our storytelling platform, you can also find an annotated catalogue of source texts that were popular with learners in our schools, and which can serve as a basis for other writing projects. To learn more and sign up for free, go to fantails.eu/platform. The lesson ideas and materials I've shared with you today are available on our project website at fantails.eu/materials, along with many more Fantails goodies. We also have a convenient poster with an outline of the materials that you can download here. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing your Fantails projects emerge.